If you're planning to travel through Europe with your own vehicle, be it a motorcycle or a car or whatever, a motorhome, you probably are gonna come across ferries at some point, because in Europe there are a lot of destinations where you maybe only come with a ferry to a destination, or it's just a lot more convenient to take the ferry. And so in this video I want to show you and take you on a ferry trip. We are currently soon in Albania, and we took the ferry from Ancona in Italy to Albania, and we're gonna show you, based on this trip, everything you need to know when you are interested in taking a ferry to your favorite destination. A successful ferry ride starts with a lot of preparation, and for example, our ferry will leave tonight at 5 p.m. in Ancona. We live in Switzerland, so we would need 9 hours to get there, but you have to be at the ferry port at least 3 to 4 hours in advance in order to check in order to get through customs, because you're gonna actually pass already immigration still in Italy before we arrive in Albania. And so keep that in mind, that you need good preparation, that you need maybe 1 or 2 days more in your itinerary in order to make it to the ferry in time. But that is still not the first point you should consider when going on a ferry trip with your motorcycles. The most important point about a ferry ride starts actually weeks before the actual trip, and it's the preparation and the booking of your ferry ticket. And so I could talk hours about this. In my 4 years motorcycle career, I took a lot of ferries, and most of the time this process is the most stressful, because you mostly don't know which lines run from where, you don't know what ports connect with other ports, and so it's a lot of investigation on Google Maps. And then once you find some lines and you go on their direct offering website, mostly it's in their own language, it's chaotic, and you don't really have an overview. And so that is where my partner for this video, Cruise and Ferry, comes in. I use them since 4 years for booking my ferry rides, and I also paid for my trip to Albania myself, so it's, I guess, semi-sponsored, but it's more so meant as a very good tip, because Ferry Center, as a ferry agent, is a Swiss company that knows all the ferry lines, or almost all the ferry lines, personally in Northern Europe and Southern Europe. And so if you go to their website, you will see an overview of the lines that exist and the agencies that operate them. And so the cool thing is, you can have a very nice overview where you can go from where to where. And if you book over Ferry Center, for me, a very big recommendation is having the safety and very free moments of support. So they are Swiss based. I know the team personally, it's a small team. And if you have a problem with your booking, something's not right, something happened or whatever, you can call them and you have someone on the line that personally looks into your problem, where if you go over the general line that does the ferry cruise, you mostly won't get anyone on the phone, and if you do, they don't speak your language and you're kind of screwed at that point. And so even if you don't speak German, they speak English, and even if you're from the Netherlands or the UK, it's still a lot better to have support from Switzerland for your ferry ride. And the whole topic of ferry riding can be so stressful, and just getting that stress off of your chest and just knowing that you are in good hands is a good thing. Just as a reminder again, start thinking about your journey a bit in advance. You need that time to get the booking in, to get the fares, and just take your time to detail out your plan with your motorcycle or your van if you are planning to take a ferry. But maybe you're also interested in how the ferry check-in works, and that whole sequence until you are laying in your cabin comfortably in the bed. And so I recorded all of this and I will show you right now. Now, when we are talking about the actual checklist of things that will happen until you are comfortably laying in your bed or sitting on the ship, this is how it will most likely go. Again, I will walk you through on an example of going from Ancona to Durrës in Albania. But generally saying, of course, there are different ferry cruises all over Europe, and maybe the experience is going to be different for each one. But generally speaking, you have to go and check in at first. Even though we had an online check-in made with Cruise and Ferry, we still had to go to the counter. We had to show the little number you saw on the phone. And then also, you always need to be prepared with your passport. You got to show this document on the check-in booth, as well as your actual information about your vehicle. So it is called Fahrzeugausweis in German. And you can see here that Nico didn't have his little piece of document on man. He had it below his motorcycle seat, which a lot of motorcycle riders do have. And so at this point it wasn't too bad for him. He could just write down his license plate number and also what model he's riding, because you already give this information if you book the ferry. And so they just need it for completion of checking. And so this worked out for him. But generally speaking, it is smart to have your identification with you and also your vehicle information details. And then once this process is complete, you will get a bunch of paperwork. And this paperwork you're going to see here in a minute is going to be your pass, or just basically your admittance to the ship and also to the cabin if you booked a cabin. So it's important to really store that in a safe place. Also, once the check-in is complete, you will get the orange, for us now it was an orange piece of paper where the destination port is listed. And the reason for that, you will see later, is that the port is pretty big and there are different kind of like lanes that you have to go depending on your destination. And so do not lose this orange piece of paper or whatever color it has to the destination you are going. Just place it behind your windshield or somewhere along your bike. And if you don't have an adventure bike or you think you cannot place it anywhere, you can also bring some tape, of course, with you and tape it to your bike. And once you did this, here in Ancona, for example, don't be shocked if you have to ride another 10 to 15 minutes to your actual immigration point, because ports are huge. And for example, in Ancona, you really are gonna ride again through half of the city, it feels like, even though everything is enclosed from this point and it's only actually for people that go to the ferry. And then, as I said, you will already have your police check up before going to the ship. So we are leaving Italian land at this point. You will have to show your documents again once you reach your final destination most of the time. For example, in Albania, we had to do this again. But just be prepared, don't store your passport somewhere you can't access it. And you also probably have to show your documents that you gathered before at the check-in desk. And they will just tell you the way. And again, the document they give you, that is still very important for checking into your cabin. And so just make sure that these things are stored on a good and accessible place. And then it's time to actually embark on the ferry. I guess they don't really have a problem with taking pictures. Even though everything looks structured, you can always also snap a picture in front of your cruise ship. And then it's time to go in. Make sure to ride very carefully, especially on the bike, if it's your first time embarking on a ship, because these suckers are slippery. And so if it's raining or anything, you'll be lying on the ground very quickly. So keep that in mind. And then here's a perfect example. You know, it's in Italy, it's hectic, people don't really know. And so we got a very weird place at the first spot there, and we just said, would it be possible to be somewhere else? Also here it depends if you are embarking the ship early or rather late, but there's always some spaces for motorcycles. And sometimes people or the workers will fix your bike with accordingly, just professionally, or sometimes you have to do it yourself. For example, in Iceland, we had to strap down the bikes ourselves, but that's not such a big thing. Just be prepared to also put in some work, and it's going to be hot down there. So keep that also in mind to have a quick access to your stuff. And so there you saw just to check in. Have to give up your passport, and then finally you can access your cabin and you can finally rest. Now, before I leave you to your first or your next adventure with your ferry, I have 5 tips plus 1 bonus tip for motorcycle riders. And the first tip I have for you guys is bring your own supplies, meaning bring your lunch, bring your dinner, and bring a lot of water with you. So my buddy and me normally bring a 6-pack of 1.5 liter water bottles, because you will be at sea. For example, if you travel to Iceland from Denmark, you are 48 hours on the ferry. Or otherwise, you're just gonna be there from 4 p.m. to maybe 12 or 11 a.m. So there is a lot of time you'll be on the ship, and stuff is not cheap there. Also, the meals are not cheap. Even just a bottle of water can cost you some extensive money if you add it up. And so bring your own stuff, and you can picnic everywhere. It's legal to bring your own stuff. What you cannot do is use your gas cooker on the ship, so maybe bring something like sandwiches or wraps, and you'll be good to go. The second tip I got for you guys is book a cabin if it is in your budget, because we did the mistake one time. Well, mistake, I mean, we just didn't book a cabin because we thought, those $100 or $200 extra is not worth it. There are some areas where you can have a sleeping chair, which is already better than nothing. But for some rides, you also have the option to just take nothing. And so people will lie literally anywhere on the floor, and you don't have your own toilet, and toilet paper, stuff like that runs out pretty quickly. The showers are not very sanitary, and it's just constant noise, it's constant light. You always have to be careful about the things, that you don't lose them, that nobody steals them. And so if you don't book a cabin, you are gonna end up very tired when you land, or not land, but if you get to the destination. And so for us, it's always been better to have your own cabin. Most cabins, or I guess all cabins, come with private toilets, private shower. And if you are traveling, for example, to Iceland, there a cabin is mandatory, so you cannot camp on the ferry. So you would have to get one anyways. But that's just a heartfelt, warm recommendation from me. Get a cabin if the budget allows it. Tip number 3, and maybe that is self-explanatory, but maybe in the heat of the moment you forget it, you won't have any internet service at sea for an elongated time. And so make sure to bring some games, make sure to pre-download your TV shows, or bring a book, or just think about ways how to tackle that time. Some ferries, again, the Norrena, which goes to Iceland, has a TV in your cabin, which is already a big plus, I guess. But just make sure to be able, to do something while there. Tip number 4 is your boarding strategy. If you have no hurry once you arrive at your destination, go on and embark the ferry as soon as you like. Stay there and relax. But if you are in a hurry to leave once you arrive at the destination, I would recommend you to embark as late as possible, because the last cars that come on the ferry are the first that leave. And we also had some experiences on our journeys where we just had some some lorry that just didn't go, or a van that couldn't reverse. And so we lost an hour, maybe even 1.5 hours just disembarking the ship. So keep that in mind. The last that go on the ferry are the first that are gonna leave again. Also at this point, very important, you cannot access your vehicle once you are set on sea. So once the ferry leaves its port, the belly of the ferry, where all the vehicles, the cars, the bikes, the lorries and whatever are stored, you cannot access that. So make sure to bring all the stuff with you once you go up and there in the cabins, so you have all your items and you don't forget anything. Also your headset, from the helmet. We normally leave the helmet on the bike, but we make sure to take the intercom with us so we can charge them and be ready once we leave for the adventure. Tip number 5 would be just expect delays. You are crossing a sea, and so there is weather, there is the port congestion, there is loading times. So a lot of things and a lot of factors that determine when you can actually disembark from the ferry. And we had some cases where we could leave the ferry maybe 3 to 4 hours later than expected. Just keep that in mind. It is always better to take some spare time into your calculation so you can really relax on the ferry and not just worry about missing your next whatever point on your agenda is going to be. And then the last tip, a bonus tip for the motorcycle riders, it's going to be hot as heck in that vehicle area of the ferry. And most of the time you will spend another 30 to 45 minutes from where you could go down to your vehicles and where you can disembark the ferry. And so just keep that in mind. Also, when embarking the ferry, I would recommend you plan yourself a little bag which you already place somewhere, so you can just snag the bag and leave that area as quickly as possible. Even when we were riding to Iceland, which was a very cold environment, it was still so hot in the actual vehicle area. Keep that in mind, and also protect yourself from the elements. Again, Iceland as an example, the motorcycle riders had to wait I guess 1.5 hours again before we could enter the ferry, and it was just raining all the time. And there wasn't much space to go, like cover to get under, and no shelter. So yeah, take your rain gear and be prepared. If it's hot, make sure to have enough water with you when you are waiting, some shade, maybe a cap or something to save yourself from the heat or the sun. And then once you embark the ferry, make sure you can quickly grab your things and just go up and relax on the main area of the ferry. Yeah, these were my tips, and I hope that this video prepared you perfectly for your next adventure. And I hope to hear some comments down below talking about your adventure that you're gonna take, or the adventures that you were taking, and let's connect in the comments. I hope you liked the video, and always ride, or in this case also drive, safe. See you the next time.